Good morning, friends. In the last session, we had discussed about the barriers to communication. So far, we have covered a lot of concepts about communication regarding what is communication, different types of communication, what are the steps to establish effective communication, then using the 7 C's to establish effective communication, barriers, and so on. Today, in this lecture session, we are going to deal with session 2, that is verbal communication. We had already seen what is verbal communication and types of communication earlier, but now we are going to deal with each of these types of communication in detail. So, the very first thing which we are going to see is what is verbal communication. Any type of communication which takes place using words, that is known as verbal communication. So, let's see how verbal communication can take place. What is verbal communication? Sharing of information using words, using the right words. Don't confuse others. You should make use of right words to convey your message properly and effectively to the person whom you are talking to. Avoid confusing others by using too much of jargon and too much of complicated words and sentences. Rather, use simple sentences which everybody would be able to understand in a better way. Types of verbal communication: oral or spoken communication and written communication. So we can have two different types of verbal communication, one where words are spoken and another where they are written. What is spoken communication? It's a face to face conversation, like, for example, a group discussion where people sit together in a group and discuss certain things on a particular topic. Talking to a family member at home. Conversation with public through speeches, that is public speeches when you listen to speeches by eminent personalities on the television or on the web these days, that comes under face to face communication. Talking on the phone with your friend or your relative or your cousin, always you should follow certain norms or certain etiquettes while speaking, like begin with a greeting, that is hello. Talk and listen. It's not just essential to keep talking, but listening is also equally important. So wait for the person to finish what he or she is speaking and then you speak. Don't just wait for that person to conclude so that you could speak, but also listen to what the person is saying and try to decode the message conveyed by the person in front. End with a thank you and bye. Another one is classroom teaching. When your teacher teaches in the classroom, like what I am doing right now, that comes under oral or spoken communication. Business discussion. In a company, employees, managers, they need to discuss on certain things like uh, policies, future business plans, any new product line or any service which they are going to launch, working on a particular project. So all this requires effective communication, then that is possible with the help of oral or spoken communication. Public speeches, of course, we have seen press conferences held by eminent personalities, business houses, or film personalities. Okay, so all this comes under oral communication. Written communication. Written or typed words are involved. For example, writing letters, notes. You can see to-do list or to-do post-it notes. Usually, people in the West, they prefer leaving post-it notes at various places within the house to give random messages to home, to their family members. Like, for example, you can see here, need milk, need sticks for barbecue, don't forget to take the trash out, don't forget to feed the dog, don't forget the kids at school. And another example of a kind of a breakup message: I don't love you anymore, bye. So it's quite possible that the other one might not be in a position to face the person, hence he or she has just left a post-it note saying I don't love you anymore. So these are certain examples of written communication. Emails, of course, we make extensive use of emails every day, and nowadays emails are extensively used in used for business purposes. SMS or phone, through the phone, sent to a person, sent to a group. So uses of email, what are the various uses of email? Email can be used to share. Now, first of all, let me tell you what is an email. Email stands for electronic mail. If you want to send a message to somebody using the internet, you use what? Email. News, thoughts, documents, and files, including photos, videos, music, etc. All this could be shared using email. We make extensive use of attachment these days, and these days, with the arrival of cloud based web portals like Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and all, we can easily send large files to people. It can be used to send messages to one person or to a group of people. Books and newspapers are another example of what not only the uses of email, but books and newspapers could be considered as a different part, okay, as a different means of written communication. But if I try to link it with email, I can do that also, because nowadays many books are available in ebook form, in the PDF format, which could be easily sent as an attachment through email. Newspapers also, we can get e-papers these days for most leading newspapers, which we can also send to people. Now, some advantages and disadvantages of verbal communication, let us see them. Now, what are the advantages? Easy and quick. Verbal communication is usually very easy and quick, because you are speaking the words and the person in front of you is listening at the same time, so it takes less time. Say whatever you want, you get a quick response for whatever you say. It is easy to exchange ideas. Many a times we feel that instead of texting somebody when a matter is of great concern for you or that person, you prefer calling that person and telling whatever you want to say, or speaking, rather than texting that person in long messages. So it is easy to communicate your ideas easily through verbal communication. Can change your communication as per other person's reply. You can also change your communication, like you can change the topic of communication, or you can quickly change the context of communication as per the person's reply or interest. Some disadvantages: cultural differences between the sender and receiver. Of course, this will always be there, because uh, on this planet you can find people from many different regions and many different cultures, so that will always be there. If you are talking to a person who is not familiar with your culture, that person may use gestures or words which you are not familiar with, or which may be offensive to you. Use of different languages, inability to understand the colloquial phrases used by the other individual, and the accent. When I talk about colloquial phrases, it means certain words or phrases which are used on a daily basis, like which we call chalu bhasha or chalit bhasha in Hindi. Those words which are normally considered as informal or slang words, which we, being the people who are familiar with the language, we know, but others don't know. Similarly, we travel to some country, and there uh, the people's the native people may use such colloquial phrases or words which we may might not be familiar with. For example, in the US, many a times they use this word, shut your pie hole. So when they say shut your pie hole actually refers to our mouth. Our mouth is a kind of hole through which where we put in pie. Pie is a nice sweet dessert which is made with pastries and many other types of delicious fillings. So the hole through which you eat your pie hole, that is known as your mouth. So instead of using the word mouth, they use shut your pie hole. So that is considered as a colloquial phrase. So similarly, there are many other such slang words or colloquial phrases which you may not be familiar with, and also the accent. Many a times in US they use this kind of a word, I ain't buying it. So it might not be very we might not be very familiar with it when they use this phrase ain't. Now what is the meaning of ain't? I am not buying it. Instead of using this term am not, they use the short form, that is ain't, which is kind of unfamiliar to people of other cultures, especially us who are heavily dependent on the UK version or British version of English. Confusing meanings if the right words are not used. If you are not using the right words, meanings might confuse you. Some cultural differences we will see with respect to verbal communication. What are the cultural differences? People from Anglo-Saxon countries wait their turn to talk if they've been taught their manners. Interrupting is considered rude. So, as we are talking about verbal communication, hence certain cultural differences are we will be seeing here. That is how various cultures, they have different manners when it comes to talking or speaking. In many Latin cultures, interrupting is not rude and is expected. So, on one hand, it is considered rude in some cultures, whereas on the other hand, some cultures may accept it very well. Now, you might be thinking about who are Anglo Saxon people. So, Anglo Saxon countries are actually those countries, basically, people there, they were the Germanic tribes who migrated from Germany to their country, to the parts certain parts of Britain, and they got mixed up there, and most of the English language is their contribution. And coming to Latin cultures, usually we talk about those Latin American countries like Mexico and South America and these countries. Asian cultures often take the wait your turn rule to extremes, giving a pause before responding. So, in Asian cultures, it is important that you wait for your turn to talk. Pitch and volume also differ between cultures. Americans, for instance, usually speak with a low pitch and only raise their voices in anger or excitement. So, in many Hollywood movies, you might have observed this. Portuguese speak in higher pitches and volumes during normal conversation. Whereas in Scotland, you should never refer to Scottish people as Scotch, because Scotch is actually an alcoholic beverage. The people of Scotland are called Scots or Scotsmen. You should speak in a low voice when you are in Scotland. In Bahamas and Mexico, if you are talking to an adult, it is mandatory to show respect. Of course, where else is it not? Everywhere people expect you to show respect while talking. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, you should say whenever you are speaking. And you should always learn to thank people or show gratitude whenever you get something, or else you would get punished. In Mexico, you should address others using their family name. Family name is usually the surname. coming to public speaking. Now, many a times these days, public speaking or oratory skills are the much preferred uh, qualities. Okay, when I had started my excuse me, when I had started my career in teaching, the very first problem I faced was with public speaking. That was because I am usually by nature a very introverted person. I don't, until unless it is very necessary, I don't like socializing with people. So that is one of my flaws or drawbacks, you can say. So I used to have a hard time with public speaking. That I don't know how to speak in English or converse or communicate. You have already seen my communication skills in the online sessions and in these videos. So my entire lectures are in English. I don't use a Hindi word. But if I'm trying to speak in Hindi, I use Hindi completely. So public speaking is very important. There are certain skills needed for public speaking. We are going to see what they are. Speaking in front of a large group makes most people nervous. This is what something everybody faces. Most people they face until and unless they are outwarded. That is, they are very much friendly with people. You can use the 3 P's, that is, prepare, practice, and perform. This method to get over your fears and become a confident and effective speaker. What are the 3 P's of public speaking? How to speak confidently, we will see in a short while. Number one, prepare. Think about your topic. Think about what your listeners need to know about the topic. Think about the best way to make your listeners understand your topic. So, the very first thing is preparation. You have to prepare well. You have to think about a particular topic. Then, what your listeners, that is, what your audience wants to know about the topic, you have to think that. That is the content of your topic. Then, best way to make your listeners understand your topic. I think the best way is to give as many examples as you can. In my lectures also, you might have noticed that I try to give you as many examples as I can, because examples or demonstrations are the best way to make people understand the concept. Write what you plan to say. Make a list of points in a copy or in a notebook of what you want to say. Second step is practice. Practice by yourself first. Talk in front of a mirror. This is something which you should do if you really want to gain some confidence and eliminate some of your nervousness while speaking. Talk in front of your family and friends and ask them what they think. If you want to gain some confidence and remove stage fear by of public speaking, you should first try to speak in front of your family and friends. Take essential feedback from them regarding what more changes or additions you should make in your speech. Speak clearly, loudly, and at the right speed, not very fast, not very slow. If you are speaking too slow, then your audience might lose interest. And if you are speaking too fast, the audience might be overwhelmed with your words and may not get the complete idea or message. You should be quite loud when you are speaking, and you should be very clear when you are speaking. That is most important. And finally, it is perform. Take a few deep breaths if you are feeling nervous. Think about what you have prepared and start speaking confidently. That is, you have to finally perform whatever you have planned, prepared, practiced in front of your audience. So, avoid, if you are feeling nervous, of course, you cannot avoid being nervous. Take a few deep breaths which will relax you. Tell yourself mentally to calm down. Reflect on what you have prepared rather than engaging in talking or random conversation with your peers, and start speaking confidently. Sometimes you can also hold the mic when you are speaking and at other times you can avoid looking directly into the eyes or avoid having direct eye contact with your audience. Rather just imagine that you are looking at a white sheet covered with black dots. That's what you are looking at. So this way, if you imagine that you don't actually are facing an audience, you would be highly confident. So those are the 3 P's of verbal communication. The next topic which we will discuss is non-verbal communication. So that we'll be doing in our next video. In the end, just one request to everyone. If you really benefit from this video, then please like my video, share my video and subscribe my channel. Please do not forget, like the video, share the video and subscribe my channel. And thank you all for your love and support.